If you are watching this video now, it is because you have reached that point, that silent, intimate, and unbearable moment where something inside you begins to scream. Perhaps you cannot exactly name what is happening, but you feel that you can no longer continue living the same way. It's as if there is an internal crack, an invisible rupture that separates who you are from who you have been pretending to be. It is not a coincidence. It is inevitability. At some point in the human journey, everyone faces this inner collapse and many ignore it, anesthetized by the comfort of routine or paralyzed by the fear of change. But for some like you, this collapse transforms into a call, an impulse that can no longer be silenced. Carl Gustav Jung described this phenomenon as the call to individuation, a psychic process where the soul refuses to continue living under the masks that have been constructed to please, survive, and fit in. This video is not just content. It is a mirror, a symbolic reflection, that reaches you exactly when your conscious mind has no more answers, but the unconscious already knows it is time to act. This is the moment when normal life begins to reveal its true face. An automated existence shaped by others' expectations, worn social roles, and promises that are never fulfilled. Perhaps you are in a relationship that slowly drains your energy, or in a job that, although it pays the bills, silently murders your soul day after day. Perhaps what traps you is more subtle. The shame of displeasing your prince, the fear of not being accepted, the weight of a path that was laid out for you, but never by you. Jung warned us that the greatest danger of modern life is not chaos, but the unconscious adaptation to inautentic. The true catastrophe is living a life that is not yours and not even realizing it. And that is precisely why the calorizes through suffering. When Psyche has tried in every subtle way to alert the ego through dreams, silent crises, emotional exhaustion, and has been ignored, it raises the volume. And what was once just discomfort turns into despair. What was once doubt transforms into anguish. What was once fatigue becomes collapse. And then something curious happens. You begin to attract exactly the messages, symbols, and signals need to awaken. Not because the universe is magical, but because your soul is actively seeking the keys to escape the internal prison. It is at this moment that you find videos like this. Because the unconscious, as Jung described, has a symbolic intelligence and it manifests when the ego is ready to listen. You may have stumbled upon this video among hundreds of others, but nothing is by chance when it comes to the soul. The content you are about to watch is not a quick fix nor a self-help formula. It is a confrontation, a summons to look in the mirror and face everything you have been avoiding. The fear, the shame, the anger, the boredom, the guilt, the frustration, all these feelings are not signs of weakness. They are indicators that the structure of your current life is crumbling because it has reached its limit. You are not broken. You are being pushed to be born again. This is the moment, and it can no longer be postponed. Most people live their lives as functional zombies. They wake up, work, produce, obey, and repeat. They think this is normal, but it's not. It's just common. And common is not synonymous with healthy. You were taught from an early age to seek stability, to follow rules, to fit in, to not make too much noise. The message was clear. Don't question. Be grateful. Do what is right, but right for whom? Carl Jung wrote in Undiscovered Self that the greatest threat to the individual soul in modernity is not madness nor misery but massification. The transformation of the human being into a statistical cog, a replaceable part within a system that values conformity over authenticity. When you start to feel suffocated by your own routine, that feeling is not at effect. It's a sign, a silent scream from your psyche saying, this is not you. You may have followed all therails, graduated, got a job, found a partner, posted smiling photos, and yet you feel empty. As if there's a part or few observing everything from the outside. This feeling of dissociation is nodalness. It's consciousness trying to emerge. It's the unconscious signaling that the persona you built to survive is no longer enough to live. The normality he sold you is a sophisticated trap. It offers you small doses of pleasure in exchange for your freedom. You gain social approval, a stable salary, familiar acceptance, but the price is high. You sacrifice your truth, your inner voice, your spontaneity, and over time you forget who you really are. Jung said that adaptation to society is necessary, but it becomes pathological when it demands the abandonment of the self, and that's exactly what happens to millions of people. They live normal lives while being emotional anesthetic, spiritually apathetic, existentially lost. The system rewards obedience with distractions. You get Netflix, delivery likes, and a false sense of belonging, also that you never have to ask yourself, am I living or just existing? This collective lie creates an illusion of security, but inside you feel the crack. Perhaps you are trying to silence this pain with productivity, with entertainment, with superficial relationships. But no distraction can silence a soul in crisis. And when you start to question, the world tries to convince you that the problem is you, that it's just anxiety, that it's just stress, that you need a vacation. But deep down, this is not just tiredness, it's despair. You feel that something is wrong with your life, not because you are failing, but because you are awake enough to realize that the whole structure is corrupt. False normality is a disguise for psychic death. It's the result of a life guided by duties and not by meaning. Jung said that the unlived life is a disease from which one can die. And what we see most are people dying slowly, one day at a time, trapped in a narrative that was never written by them. But there is a way out, and it begins with the deconstruction of this farce. The next step is not to go back to sleep. It's to accept that this malaise, this restlessness, this existential anguish are the prelude to something much greater, transformation. And that's exactly what we will talk about next. Why you are not broken, but rather ready. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. We live in a culture that interprets suffering as a sign of failure. If you are distressed, it's because something went wrong. If you are sad, it's because you have a problem. If you feel like you don't belong, it's because there is something wrong with you. But this interpretation is a dangerous lie. Suffering is not a defect to be corrected. It is a sign to be deciphered, and perhaps for the first time in your life, you are about to understand it. Carl Jung said that the soul refuses to continue pretending when the moment of transformation arrives. What you call an existential crisis, emotional collapse, or inner emptiness is actually the beginning of a deep awakening process. Despair, chronic fatigue, the feeling of being out of place, all of this is the symbolic language of the psyche saying you are ready. Ready to shed the persona you have worn for years. Ready to look at your shadow. Ready to be who you really are, not who the world taught you to be. You may think you are falling apart, but what is falling apart is not you. It is the character you created to survive. It is the shell that has protected you until now, but has now become a prison. The suffering you feel is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength, because only the mature soul has the courage to confront its own emptiness without anesthesia. Only those who have borne the weight of the lie are fit to carry the truth. Jung observed that the human psyche intentionally produces suffering as a mechanism of transition. When the ego resists change, the unconscious responds with symptoms: anxiety, insomnia, apathy, anger, confusion. These symptoms are not obstacles on your path. They are the path. They force you to stop, to question, to look within. They compel the collapse of the old structure so that something new can emerge. Society will try to convince you that you need to go back to normal. Take a pill, take a course, read a self-help book, breathe deeply, and move on. But don't be fooled, that normal is what made you sick. You don't need to go back, you need to go through. You don't need to fix yourself, you need to free yourself. Your pain is a threshold, a symbolic portal, and if you resist, it transforms into chronic suffering. But if you listen, it becomes initiation. It's not comfortable, it's not pretty, it's not quick, but it is real, and above all, it is necessary. Jung asserted that the process of individuation begins when you get tired of being half, when you realize you can no longer live only on the surface of consciousness, when you understand that you need to integrate what is hidden, your repressed emotions, your traumas, your impulses, your denied desires. This integration is not a spiritual luxury. It is an existential urgency. You are not broken. You are traversing the unknown territory of your own soul, and every tear, every silence, every feeling of being lost is part of the trail. Pain is trying to wake you up, and now that you are starting to listen, something inevitable happens. You begin to notice that certain messages, people, symbols, even this video appear in your life with a meaning that goes beyond coincidence. This is what we will talk about in the next part. What it really means when something seemingly random comes to you at the exact moment you need it most. Have you ever felt that certain things come to you at the exact moment you needed them the most? A book that appears out of nowhere. A conversation that hits just the right spot. A video like this that shows up in your feed at a moment when you are on the brink of collapse. It's not a coincidence, it's synchronicity. A fundamental concept proposed by Carl Jung to describe what logic cannot explain, but what the soul immediately recognizes as true. Jung understood that the unconscious is not just a repository of traumas or repressed impulses. It is a living intelligence, a dynamic system that constantly tries to balance, guide, and heal the conscious psyche. When you approach a breaking point, when your soul begins to awaken to a greater truth, the unconscious intensifies its symbolic activity, and it does this using everything around you: dreams, images, emotions, and even algorithms. The outer reality begins to mirror the inner transformation, and it's not because the universe is magically conspiring, but because your psyche is magnetizing what it needs to evolve. When you are ready, the right symbols emerge, and they don't shout, they whisper, they don't convince, they touch. And you feel with disconcerting clarity that this is for you. That this message is not generic. It is intimate, directed, unquestionable. The unconscious speaks through symbols because it knows that the ego resists change. It doesn't try to convince rationally. It insinuates, suggests, leads you down unexpected paths. A song that makes you cry without knowing why. A passage from a book that seems to describe your life exactly. A dream that insists on returning night after night. All of these are forms of communication from the psyche to you, and ignoring them is like ignoring a divine call. Jung stated that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But when you start to listen to the signs, the unconscious ceases to be a hidden enemy and becomes a subtle ally. It guides you firmly, even if silently. And this video is one of those signs. It didn't appear by chance. It is a response you were unconsciously asking for, even without knowing it. If you are here, it's because something in you recognized this content as necessary. Perhaps you can't even explain why you hit play, but your soul knows, and it is trying to push you to the next step. Because now that you know you are not broken, that your pain is a sign of readiness, and that the unconscious is guiding you, you need to do something with that. But this next step is not easy, because it involves fear, it involves risk, it involves leaving the safe to dive into the unknown. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. The terrifying leap that separates the false life from the authentic life. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. Every process of real transformation requires a crossing, and every crossing requires a leap. Not a physical leap, but a psychic leap. The moment when you need to abandon the narrative that kept you safe, even if miserable, to walk towards a version of yourself that you do not yet know. This is the most critical point of the individuation process described by Carl Jung. And it is also the point where most people retreat because the leap is frightening. It means losing your footing. It means having no more guarantees, maps, or instructions. It means letting go of the carefully constructed persona, the one that brought you here, but has now become a polished prison. It means saying no to everything that seems right on the outside, to finally say yes to what pulses on the inside. Jung compared this moment to confronting the inner dragon, an archetype that represents all the fears, doubts, and resistances that arise at the threshold of change. This dragon will tell you that you are crazy, that it is not the right time, that you are unprepared, that you will lose everything, that you will disappoint others, that you will regret it. It will show you all the possible scenarios of failure because it knows that if you leap, it dies, and the ego fears symbolic death more than any pain. But here is the truth that almost no one has the courage to say. The fear you feel at this moment is not a warning to retreat. It is a sign to move forward. Fear is the marker that you are exactly at the right point. Jung stated that the encounter with oneself is at first the encounter with one's own shadow. The abyss, the hell from which no one escapes, is the self. This means that before finding freedom, you will be confronted with everything you have avoided feeling for years. You will have to face the fear of being rejected, of failing, of losing. You will have to confront the grief of everything that needs to die for something new to be born. And that hurts, it paralyzes, but it also liberates. Because once you cross over, even stumbling, even crying, even doubting, you discover that on the other side of fear, there is life, real life. Not survival, not conformity, not appearance, but presence, authenticity, and meaning. You do not need to be 100% ready to leap. No one is. You just need to be tired enough of pretending, fed up enough with the lie, brave enough to say, I do not know what comes next, but I can no longer stay here. This is the breaking point, the watershed between those who go through life anesthetized and the few who dare to awaken. And if you have made it this far, it is because you already feel the urgency of the leap. The only question that remains is what is still holding you back. In the next part, we will talk about that, about why no one is coming to save you, why the radical responsibility for your life is now yours and only yours. This is one of the hardest truths to swallow, but perhaps the most liberating of all. No one is going to save you, no person, no guru, no book, no therapist, no video, no external force will come to pull you out of the hole you are in. No savior will come to fix your life, because in reality that responsibility is exclusively yours. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner your true liberation begins. You have been conditioned to wait for someone to recognize your pain, to wait for your partner to change, for your boss to value you, for your family to understand you, for the system to finally work, for the perfect timing to appear, for courage to arise out of nowhere. But all of this is an illusion. The archetype of the external savior is a childish trap of the collective unconscious. It is the voice of the wounded child who still waits for protection, for comfort, for direction. But you are no longer that child. Now you are the adult, and the adult, as painful as it may be, needs to take charge of their own journey. Carl Jung was clear in saying that individuation, this process of becoming who you are, cannot be lived by proxy. No one can walk this path for you because this path is internal and absolutely individual. Every step needs to be yours. Every choice, every fall, every rebirth. Radical responsibility does not mean that you are to blame for everything that has happened to you, but it means that from now on you are responsible for not staying where you are. It means that even if the pain was caused by others, the healing depends on you. The truth is that the system we live in profits from your passivity. It wants you to remain dependent, insecure, obedient, to follow rules without questioning, to consume, to numb yourself, to wait for ready-made solutions. And you have waited for too long. Enough. This is the moment to break free from that emotional, spiritual, and existential dependency. No one is going to knock on your door to rescue you. There will be no clear sign. There will be no permission. There will be no manual. What exists is this growing discomfort inside you, this internal voice that insists, that provokes you, that torments you, that invites you to act, and that tells you with increasing strength, either you change or you continue dying in slow motion. You have within you all the resources to begin this crossing. But as long as you keep outsourcing your freedom, you will remain trapped. As long as you wait for someone to tell you that it's okay to leave your job, to end the relationship, to start over, you will continue living other people's lives, not your own. The ego will tell you that it's impossible, that it's dangerous, that you are not prepared. But the ego is cowardly. It just wants to survive. And your soul wants to live. Taking responsibility for your own life is the beginning of true maturity. It is the moment when you stop victimizing yourself and start rebuilding yourself in silence, without an audience, without guarantees, but with dignity. And this is where the inevitable question arises. What exists on the other side of this fear? What is there after you accept that you are alone and that the leap depends only on you? The answer Jung gives us clearly. Real life. The one you came to live but postponed for too long. And this is exactly what we will talk about next. What exists on the other side of fear, and why your authentic life begins exactly where you fear to tread the most. There is an invisible line that separates the life you live from the life you came to live. This line is not made of external obstacles, lack of money, or the opinions of others. This line is made of fear. The fear of change, the fear of disappointing, the fear of failing, the fear of stepping out of the cave of normality and walking alone into the unknown. But it is on the other side of this fear that your real life begins. Jung teaches us that fear is not an enemy. It is a guardian of portals. Every time you feel dread about changing, breaking free, taking risks, it's because you are about to touch something sacred, your true self. The persona you created, polite, functional, smiling, was useful to protect you. But now it is a prison, and the key to getting out is in the place you least want to look. Within the fear, the pain you feel, the anguish that haunts you, the emptiness you try to hide with distractions. All of this is the soul trying to push you toward the life that belongs to you. And you know this. You know because you felt it throughout the video. Because even without being able to explain it, something in you recognizes that these words are for you, not for someone generic, for you. The question now is not whether you are ready, because you will never feel that you are. The question is, will you continue to drag yourself through a life that makes you sick, or will you cross the fear and start to truly live? No one will come to save you. There will be no clearer sign. There will be no manual. But there will be a choice. And that choice is here now. So leave a mark, a small phrase, a symbolic declaration. Write in the comments, I choose to cross, not for me, for you. Because naming is invoking, writing is sealing. And this could be the first conscious decision of the new life that awaits you. And if this video found you when you needed it most, as I believe it did, keep watching. The next video is just as important as this one. It awaits you as another step on the path. You've already begun. Don't stop now.